You've decided to start creating videos and you've decided to start using Final Cut Pro 10. If you haven't, there's a link in the description below where you can get a 90-day period free trial. I've created this 2-part tutorial and it's split into 2 different videos of 10 minutes. So at the end, this is a 20-minute tutorial that will take you from not knowing anything to creating your first video. So stay tuned. The very first step you need to follow when editing in Final Cut Pro 10 is to get organized. If you fail in this step, it will be a nightmare for the rest of your editing. The first thing I do is I create a folder with the name of the project. In this case, it's going to be called Parents Night Out, and this is a video I'm doing for a client. Inside of there, you're going to have a folder called Video, Audio. When you first start your project and you open Final Cut Pro 10, this is what you will see. The first step is to create a library. So File, New Library, and we're going to create a new library. We want to create this library in the same folder where we have everything. In this case, we will go into our project Parents Night Out, and we're going to create a library here that it's going to be called Parents Night Out. Save. The next step is to import your media. Make sure you've selected Parents Night Out, or the name of the library that you've selected. And we're going to click on Import Media. We're going to go where all of our media lives. In this case is here, Parents Night Out. And we have our folders. We're going to see on this side, on Files, we're going to click on Keywords. We want Final Cut Pro to create keywords based on the folder's name. Select all of your folders, import selected, and it's going to start bringing all of the media into your library. Here's all of our media, everything that's going to be used in this project. What happened is that Final Cut Pro created an event, a smart collection, an event. What you will notice here is that all of our keywords are the same names as all of our folders. If I go into my video folders, you're going to notice that I separate all of my footage according to the camera I use. So all of the footage that I took with the A6400 is in this folder, and all of the footage that I took with the 80D is in this folder. On my library, I can see the footage from each of the cameras. This is going to make it so much easier, especially when you have a lot of footage. Like on this project, there's a ton of footage, there's hours of footage, but I can pinpoint what I want to see. The next step is to create a project, and this is where we're going to start editing our video. Click on New Project, make sure you're within the same event, 4/4/2021, and use it here. I'm going to leave the date, and I'm going to title my project Parents Night Out. Then I'm going to go into the video format. I will use 1080p, even though I have a lot of footage here that's in 4K. I'm going to select 1080p. Then the resolution for a 1080p video, 1920 by 1080. And even though I have footage that I shot at 24 or 120 or 60 frames per second, my timeline is going to be 23.98 frames per second. Leave everything as it is here and then click OK. The bottom portion of the Final Cut Pro window contains the timeline, where you can create all of your movie projects by adding and arranging your clips and making all of your edits. Final Cut Pro has a way of skimming your footage, adding something called start and end points. To give you an example, we're going to look at this clip. If I hover over this clip with the mouse, it's going to let me analyze my clip before putting it into the timeline. So if I put in the timeline, it's going to be harder. So before compromising and putting into my timeline, I can just hover over. Whenever I find a part of the clip that I want to use, I will hit the key I for a start point, and I can keep going. And if I want to use this part of the clip, I'm going to use the key O, and then I will select F to mark it as a favorite, and it's going to add a green line up there. If I keep skimming and I want to use this part of the clip, I will hit I and then keep going, hit O, F to make it a favorite. Another short key is the space bar, so I can select this clip and hit the space bar, and it's going to start playing the clip.
Stay on this side.
Hit the space bar again to stop it, and if I want to add this part as a starting point, I will hit the key I, hit the space bar to keep it going, space bar again to pause, and then O for endpoint, and select it as a favorite. As you can see, now I have 3 clips I've selected that I'm positive I'm going to use. So I can go up here where it says all clips, select favorites, and it's only going to show those clips that I've selected. When it's time for me to use them and start editing, I will drag the clip into the timeline, and now I can start working with my clips. I'm going to remove the audio of these clips just for the sake of this video so it's not annoying for you. But now I have these 3 clips here that I shot. I can use the letter B to use the blade, and the blade is going to split that clip into 2 clips. And then I use the letter A to go back to the arrow for the select function. And if I click on this here, then I can use the key delete to delete it. I'm going to leave a link on the description. It's the Apple website, and it's going to show you all of the shortcuts for Final Cut Pro. Another really cool feature about Final Cut Pro 10 is the transitions panel, and it's represented by this kind of a double triangle. And when you click, and I can use all of these transitions on this side to go from one clip to the other. You can select it across the solve and put it right between 2 clips. And what's going to do is it will kind of fade into the other one. You can make it shorter or longer by dragging it. Another really interesting panel is the effects panel. For example, this heat tone, you drag it into your clip and it will give it this look like it's warmer, or the hue saturation curves that will allow you to change some of the colors. You can use this effect to isolate colors. As you can see, it isolated every color and it's just showing me the oranges and yellows. If you want to get rid of an effect, just click on it and hit delete and it will go away. And there's many other effects. On our inspector tab, we have our Luma chart. And this is going to tell us where our shadows are and our highlights and our midtones. And we don't want our highlights to go any over 100, and we don't want our shadows to go any lower than 0, and we want our midtones to be between 36 and 75. So the way we're going to fix it is we're going to select the clip, we're going to click on the color on this kind of a triangle with a color, and we're going to see this color tab. It's not only going to start showing like this, and we're going to go to the exposure. This controls the whole exposure. So if I drag it down, it's going to make everything look super dark. And if I pull it up, it's going to make everything look brighter. I like keeping this in the middle and adjusting each one individually. So this represents the highlights, this represents the midtones, and these are my shadows. I want my shadows to be almost touching the 0. And I want my midtones to be between 36 and 75. And my highlights are fine where they are. I can even drag a little bit lower and it's going to look natural. This controls the saturation. If I want my highlights more saturated, I can lift this, or if I want to remove any saturation from my highlights. This controls the color. Same thing, highlights, midtones, and shadows. I can add orange to my highlights by clicking the highlights and dragging it to the orange and raising it. I like adding teal to my shadows, so I can just raise this a little bit, maybe here. And if I see it's too green, I can adjust that with my midtones by going into the greens and adding some magenta or balancing it out into the yellow. And this is more stylish. This is depending on the look you're going for.